Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here, and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, a rather vintage Matchbox F4U-4 Corsair in 1/72 scale. So join me as I get stuck inside the box and see what this kit was like. So starting off on this side, you can see we've got this rather exciting image of the Corsair. I don't think it's just taken off. I think it's probably waiting to do an assembly with other aircraft that are taking off. Here we do have information about what's going on here. This is US Marine Training Squadron at Cherry Point in 1952 undergoing flight deck landing tests. So they're sort of doing training down here. We do have some information about this being trademarked in London, and you can see that it's two-colour kit. Obviously this was held together at some point with tape, which has yellowed due to its age. On the thin edges we have an item code of PK14. And it's the same on both sides. The long thin edge here has some information in different languages, and we do have an image of the finished model, which is not painted. So it's showing you the different coloured plastics that are included. So if you didn't want to, you could just literally glue this together, put the transfers on and call it a day. That's what the two colour thing is referencing. Flipping over to the other side, we do have some other kits in the Matchbox range at the time. A Gladiator, a Mustang, a Hurricane, and an F5A. And that's pretty much it for this side, so let's flip over. Here we've got our two painting and decal placement instructions, printed in full colour, which is great to see. The first one at the top here is the training aircraft that we saw on the front of the box, and then the second one down here is a different aircraft, which is perhaps a little bit more simple. I would be tempted to go for this one. It's got green bands, it's got a white nose, which you'll have to paint, but generally both schemes are otherwise an overall sort of dark navy blue. You can see here we have a little plastic window, which gives an indication of what you're going to see inside the box. And that's pretty much it for the box. So let's get it open and see what we have inside. So starting off with the instructions then, we've got this sort of two-tone little booklet, black and pink. And we have some information about the Corsair at the top here. If we open it up, we have a little bit of information about the kit and a symbol key as well. And then we're on to the assembly. So it just folds out like this. We have a pilot which goes in his chair, then we have our engine being glued together, and there is a retaining pin, so if you're careful with your glue you should have a freely rotating prop. Add that inside of the aircraft. It looks quite simplistic. The pilot literally just gets glued onto the sort of stand. If display stand is to be used, clear slot B, so open up slot B if you're going to use the display stand, so we'll see if there's a display stand included. Number 5, add your cockpit canopy. 6, add your tail surfaces. 7, add your upper and lower wing surfaces as well as the tail sort of aerial wire, mast, and then we come on to landing gear. So landing gear then is assembled in a variety of bits. We do have landing gear covers, and I presume we could glue them in a closed position, but it doesn't indicate that. So if you wanted to have this in a flying pose, you might have to make modifications, but I wonder if you could just glue the landing gear covers in a closed position. Otherwise it's landing gear down, I'm afraid. We do have our gun barrels for our 20mm cannons, which need to go in the wings, and a pitot tube. And that's pretty much it. We do have a copyright date down here of 1972, which I believe is the tooling date. Flipping over to the other side, we have some hot hints, some tips on how to build your model. And then on the very back, we do have some information about why they molded it in two different color of plastic and things like that. And a little bit of a blurb about other kits that are available in the Matchbox range. So yeah, instructions generally fairly easy to follow. Decals then. So we've got one decal sheet, moderately sized. Naturally, you can see that the paper has yellowed, but the decals themselves don't appear to have suffered too much with age. So we have identification letters, we have our green bands, and our insignia. The registration actually is fairly good. However, up close you can see that the sort of the dots where this has been printed are a little bit visible. So it's not silkscreen printed as far as I can tell, but compared to other kits that I've had, there's no cracking of the decal film. So I'm hoping actually that these might still be completely usable. Obviously, we'll have to see when we get into the build. I do have some micro scale liquid decal film if there is a problem, but actually these look to be okay despite the age. There's nothing really in the way of yellowing, so hopefully they go on all right. The paper, the protective paper though, that has suffered somewhat over the years. But yeah, on the whole, they don't look too bad. I'm hoping they'll work. Fingers crossed. This brings us on to the plastic parts then. I normally start with the clear parts, but what you can see is we do indeed have a Matchbox stand. So it's a letter M, and it has an arm here and a ball and socket joint. And we needed this slot opener. There would be a slot somewhere in the plane which would attach this to it, which means you could multi-pose it, which is pretty nice. Yeah, I'm tempted to see if I can do this wheels up and have it in a flying pose. Then we come on to the actual clear part. There's only one included. That is for our canopy. It's molded to a reasonable quality. Maybe it is a little bit scuffed in a few places, but again, you know, it's sort of the age of the kit. It's possible that that happened in the past at some point. The framework is relatively proud, so you could mask that with some tape fairly easily. Obviously, you could get better quality clear parts these days, but they look okay for the vintage. And then we have our main plastic sprues. So we get two sprues in two different colors. We have a light, sort of bright, vibrant blue, and then a US Navy sort of dark blue over here on the right-hand side. My propeller has come away. It would have been here, but it's come away, but it's still in the kit, which is good. And then we do have a Made in England stamp here. So the plastic itself looks like it's become a little bit scuffed over time. It does seem to be a little bit dirty in a few places, but it's okay on the whole. The plastic is very dense, it's quite hard. We do have recessed panel lines, generally quite a simplistic level of detail, but still pretty good. We have a pilot figure there, which, you know, I've seen way worse. That's actually quite a decent pilot figure, and the chair as well. Smaller details are generally quite nicely reproduced. The plastic sort of support legs for the landing gear is quite fine. Engine cowling here and our wheels. Flipping over to the other side, there's nothing in the way of detailing on there. And we have a copyright date of 1973 here. So it would seem that the plastic parts date from 1973, or at least the tooling does, and the instructions I think said 1972. So potentially, you know, they work in concert. I would imagine that 1973 was the first release of this. But yeah, it doesn't look too bad, does it? It looks pretty good. I mean, recessed panel lines is something we sort of expect out of today's kit, and here they were in the 70s putting them on. The next one then is our wing components. Again, we've got recessed panel lines, perhaps not as refined as we would see today, but still quite nice nonetheless. And upper and lower wing surfaces, there's a bit of extra plastic here which needs to be removed. Tail surfaces as well, and then landing gear covers. Everything seems to be present. Flipping over to this side, upper wing surfaces are the same kind of deal. Engine representation is pretty good. That's not bad, is it? And yeah, that's it. Flash is not too present. We do have a slight sink mark in the wing here at each point, where I think it's where these sort of holding your landing gear legs in position would be. I'm probably not going to bother addressing that. Yeah, on the whole, it actually looks pretty nice. It looks like it'll be a fairly quick build. I do need to see where we would cut out that slot for the display stand. Oh, it's here. It's just here where my thumb is. So it's one on this side and one on that side. So that's what I might do. I might build this one and see if I can do it wheels up with the landing gear covers glued into place. I might have to make modifications, but it would be really nice to have it flying with the pilot in control on its vintage display stand. That's what I want to do. So yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. Let's round it up. We had two plastic sprues molded in two different colors. Level of details, quite reasonable. Recessed panel lines, flash isn't too bad. A few little sink marks in a few places. And also ejector pin marks are not particularly present on visible surfaces, which is a nice aspect. There might be a few in a few places, but generally they seem to have avoided that. Clear parts, just the one, molded to a reasonable quality. Should do the job. Display stand included, absolutely fantastic. I think more model kits should include them today. Propeller, which we didn't look at, molded to a reasonable quality. Decals still look to be usable, naturally not up to today's standards. I hope they work. I will guess I'll have to see. Instructions, some elements of colour, but generally fairly simple to follow. Shouldn't be a particularly long build to do. And all of that came contained within this lovely box. It's not very big, it's big enough to do the job. I wonder if maybe in the old days there would have been a plastic bag with the stuff inside of it, but we did have a little window here we could see in, and our painting instructions are on this side here. Granted, quite simplistic, but I think just enough to do the job. Not overly complicated sort of paint schemes. If I do this one, what I think I'm going to do is probably build the model, then spray paint this white. I might have to leave the propeller off whilst I do that and then add it later on, so I probably won't have a spinning prop. And then mask that, paint the rest of it in a dark blue, and then add the decals. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It looks pretty decent. Let's do a little bit of history of the kit. So as we were looking through, we did see a copyright date on there of 1973. Scalemates seems to believe that this was a 1972 tooling, but naturally it's possible that it was tooled in 1972 and not released until 1973. I think that the version I've got here might be the 1974 release, or at least been manufactured since 1974. At the very least, I think this will date between 1974 and 1979, given that a different version was released after that point. As regards pricing, there was no price sticker on here from the original shop that it was in sale at. It would be hard to define a price at this point. Naturally, this is discontinued. This hasn't been seen since the mid-90s. And although I imagine Revell probably own the tooling for this, they actually have a more modern tooling of the F4U Corsair, so there's probably no reason why they would reintroduce this one. So with that in mind, the only sort of stocks that exist out there are on the second-hand market. And I did a little bit of Googling, and it would seem that prices range wildly. So you could look for one at £10, or maybe one all the way up to £20, or maybe even more expensive than that. I don't know how much this one cost. This was actually a present. This was a gift from my wife. So I would be rude to ask her how much she paid for it, but I would be surprised if she spent more than £20 on it. Naturally, of course, you might think to yourself, it may not necessarily be worth £20, but again, with these vintage kits, because stocks are so low and it's discontinued and it's almost rare, and you could be competing with someone who wants to collect kits rather than build them. I love to build them, so that's what I'll do. That price can be very subjective, can't it? It can be what you find the value in it. So if it holds that value to you, then absolutely go ahead and have a go at getting one. Personally, I'm going to have a go at building this. I think actually what is interesting is we've got the artwork. I've just noticed this artwork on here has 50 cal machine guns, but I think if we were looking at this, where was it? Where are they? The guns are just outboard. The guns in this one were the 20mm cannons, weren't they? So there's a little bit of a disparity there between the two. Yeah, so we've got them here. They were 20mm cannon barrels. So yeah, there's a little bit of a misalignment there between having 50 cals and 20mm guns. They're not replicated on here. You'd think the gun barrels would be. But yeah, that's beside the point. It's a vintage kit. There probably will be errors. It's not going to be 100% accurate. But I think for its time, a little dive into the past of what Matchbox was. It's quite a nice representation, and it looks to be complete, which hopefully should build up into a nice model. But I think I'm probably going to wrap this one up here. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my review, and if my assessment of this kit was fair. And did you build any of these in the past? Have you experienced a kit like this? Do let me know. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a quick shout out to my Model Club members for the extra support they give the channel. Massive thanks to these guys on screen. And if you'd like to join them or support the channel in other ways, check out the links in the description to find out how. The best way to support the channel for free, though, is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally, though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.